this is pretty standard for how I do some other more like electro house sounding stuff, the more bangery sounding stuff. Yeah, and I don't know, you're just gonna go everything you see up here. I guess I can get rid of that. I work in Ableton Live, pretty standard. Up top, I have the side chain channel, which is just a muted kick drum. The channel's turned off, but I use that to send a side chain signal to the compressor. The D and B is like my drums and bass channel. And this one, I programmed, I think, the kick and the snare in drum rack, and I'll kind of go through all these more clearly later. There's like a little ding that I use somewhere in this track somewhere. I have cymbals that are being automated a little bit. And that's like, I guess, actually the bulk of the drums in this one. The drums are pretty simple. And then I have the acapella in here, where there's like a frequency shifter and auto filter on it. Then there's another channel with acapella on it used for a little breakdown thing. This is a sweep, kind of effects thing. This is another kind of like bit of the acapella chopped up for messing around. Another sweep, a little noise hit, another effects thing. I have Chordsy, which is kind of like the breakdown effect. It's actually a soft synth called Strobe. The Dutch lead that kind of gets changed throughout it. Then I have the bass as well, which is kind of like the track switches up in the middle. You'll hear that. That's being automated a bunch. Some white noise, another like a sub bass layer, and there's some other stuff that I kind of use to write to it. Like I usually write chords via a piano, and then kind of build a bass line around that or whatever it is. Just generally, the way I make music is kind of funny because I don't consider myself a very good player. I always kind of like identify more as like a hacker, someone who kind of just pokes around and stuff, sounds cool. And when I was approached to do this Kelly Rowland remix, they sent over the full song, which I think I used down here. So here's the original if you're not familiar.
Don't you dare slow it down. Go longer.
That's distorting because of the master on the master, but you kind of get the idea. It's like a halftime rap track.
Don't you dare slow it down.
And then
Make you lose yourself.
so there's a little Wayne in there too. You can hear I have it warped. So I went in and warped this whole track in Ableton Live so I could time stretch it however I wanted, speed it up, slow it down, and figure out at what speed the acapella could work at. Because it's originally at 141 BPM, which you can see down here with my mouse over it since we're seeing on the video. I actually slowed it down to 130 BPM and then double timed it, so it's kind of a more traditional like electro house club tempo. And yeah, once I had that kind of tempo worked out, the first thing I did was kind of get sorted on drums. And I generally start with just drums, a drum rack, something like that. And I have a few different kind of kits that I like to work out of. For the electro house stuff, I usually work out of this Thomas Penton kit. And the way my samples are arranged is kind of crazy due to some hard drive crashes and other things. But I have my Skeet shit, if we can say that on the internet. These are all kind of things that I've cut up. There's like Be More kits that I've made, Ableton stuff, so chord scales. This Tony's chord things like a cool circle of fifths tool. Acapella samples. There's like Manny Fresh drum hits, things that I use and like all the time. I've like jack stuff from remix packages. There's all kinds of stuff. 808s, 909s, disco loops, swaggy stuff. I don't even know what that is. Oh, like one hits. Like I think I jacked one of Dylan's kicks or something. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Benny Boom, my friend Benny Blanco, who's a really great pop producer, gave me some drums. These are all great. Yeah, lots of stuff in here, lots of goodies. But for what I used on this track, I went to like some sound packs, and there's lots of goodies in here. Stuff you've seen before, I'm sure. And I went down to the Thomas Penton. I'm going to close some of these so they're not all in our way. But Thomas Penton has some pretty good stuff. I usually go straight to volume 3. I'll grab a kick out of here. They're all pretty punchy. On this one, I think I used kick 4. Wait, let me check it out here. It's there. Oh wait, that's muted. Sorry. But and right now there's an EQ on it, filtering it. That kind of opens up. I think there's like a high pass, or actually, what do I have it? I have it layered. Let me work back. How do I got this thing going? Yeah, kick here, and I guess it's layered with another kick drum right here. So what I've tried to do is take this kind of punch of this kick, because I quite liked it, and layer it with a kind of more subby, kind of like fuller sounding kick here. And you can always play with these things in little samplers in here. For claps, I have another kind of just clap. There's a snare. It's like a really kind of like punchy in-your-face snare. That one I've EQ'd. It's got some kind of just cool mid and high stuff going on. Some hats. That was like more like a pure white noise. And you got your hi-hats. So what I did initially was just kind of take those two kicks. For the intro, it's just straight 4 to the floor. And then later on, so that kind of was a nice way to pick up the pace. Cause I felt like the vocal was moving a little slow. If we go back and check out how much that song is slowed down. If I mute these snares, I feel like it kind of just drag. So I added these snares and kind of made them move around quite a bit, so there's a lot of pace. And if you just want to see the drum programming, it's pretty straight ahead. I don't know, there's that hi-hat coming on the offbeat, and the snares kind of moving around like a samba-y style. I don't even know what that is. Dutch housey, whatever. And then on the kind of 8-bar phrases, I have cymbals coming in, so it's like a nice little psh. And then I'm reversing them. And there's a little bit of like processing on that. There's an Echo Boy, which is like a cool kind of delay vintage plugin that I have sitting on one of the buses. Yeah, I think that's called a bus. So yeah, on the buses I have an Echo Boy and this kind of like vintage plate reverb.
Do you have any other plugins that you're using on this that are like kind of your go-tos that you like to bring in a lot of tracks?
Yeah, so I guess just on the drums, I always kind of tend to use this PSP Vintage Warmer. It's funny, like I was hanging out with Melee, this really talented bitch from the UK, and we were like just working on a track, and he uses PSP Vintage Warmer as well on all of his drums. I generally use this multi-band compressor limiter medium, and then I kind of adjust it. I'll play with the drive, maybe the knee, whatever, until it kind of fits right, but it kind of gives everything a nice squish, so I just solo the drums and kind of get them playing. They kind of sound pretty thumpy and nice. Take it off, and even with the volume back up, it just gives them a nice squish and kind of fills drums up. And I think, you know, with bangery, peak hour stuff like this, it's kind of about being loud in people's face, and you want those drums to really kind of like punch people in the face. So,
do you feel like you might have a signature sound that you kind of fall back on or you go to a lot?
It depends what I'm trying to do. I think, you know, in the interview I talk about a bit about like really trying to like make people happy, and this track was like a pretty good example of that. This was a remix for a halftime track with Kelly Rowland, who was on like David Guetta Records, and Lil Wayne, who's like, you know, a pretty commercial club rapper. But as you know, the original, it was just it felt kind of slow. So for me, I'm talking to like A&R while they want a remix. They just wanted something that fit, like it would work a bit more in the club. So the goal for this was to make something in my head that would like keep some of that vibe, like, and at the same time work at like a peak hour nightclub. In my head, I was thinking like Live or someplace that I'll play in Miami, where like Lil Wayne's a big hit, but also they want to hear banging like wavy stuff like that.
Is there anything in here that another producer may look at and say, well, that's not how you're supposed to do it, but you did it a different way?
I mean, I literally have no idea. These drums could be over compressed. I mean, I think a lot of people I've talked to don't like stacking kicks and stuff because they can get muddy. I think it all depends. Like, these probably aren't layered as nice as they could be. I just stick stuff on it, and then if you look at the individual one, I have this EQ 8 on it where I'm just rolling off everything below, I guess, what is this at, like 500 hertz. And then I think on this one, I did this a while back, but yeah, I let that one just kind of live. It's not even EQ'd. So like that one's just sitting boomy, and this one's sitting on top of it. So if you listen, it's just... So that kick 04 or whatever down here is giving a nice little ring up top. If I mute it, it's more just bleh, 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 bleh. So this is sitting up in the mid, kind of like punching through in the mid. And I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward, but some people don't like to stack kicks and snares. I do it every now and then. I love a nice tight hi-hat. I think it just kind of like helps with pace. If you have a really like long one, for me it just seems to like make things drag a little bit. So this one, the hi-hat, I'll mute these snares, And then if you listen to it with just the hi-hat, it's just... And there's not a whole lot to that. It's pretty straight ahead. It's kind of picking great sounds, I think. And these snares, it kind of had like a military feel to me, you know, like those snares, they felt like, I don't know, drumline or something. It kind of just feels, I don't know, it feels like it moves quick. And that's for me with music, it just feels, it's just vibe. Like, I'm not really the mad scientist, it'll be like, oh, at 300 hertz, I had mid-side processed. Like, it's just, I don't know, this feels good. Maybe you want to go like this, which is what I want to do in the nightclub.
What are some of the parts that were the most complex for you that when you listen to it you wouldn't even really notice? Like, what are the hidden parts that you're like, damn, that took forever? And I'd listen to it and be like, oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, for me, like one thing I always do, like when I finish this track, I'll show you, I started on a completely different way, and I just listened to it for the first time in like whatever it's been, a year and a half, 2 years, and I was like, what was I thinking? But I try to remove as much as possible when I'm working on tracks, especially when I'm done. Like, if it's not needed, if it's not necessary, get rid of it. And I think like that for me just kind of like was drawn from like, I don't know, Layback Luke. I remember him tweeting once, like he finished his track in 4 hours, and I was like, damn, how'd you finish a track in 4 hours? That's crazy. And I think I listened to Luke stuff, and it was like I don't know, cause and effect. And like, what are the most important parts of this track? Let's get them banged out. Let's get like that breakdown nice. Let's get the drop super epic and big and full, and get people moving, and then fill in the details, because no one really cares about the intro and no one really cares about the outro. Like, get the bulk of it there and then fill out the rest. So this track kind of stemmed from that. The first thing I did is get the drums right and kind of get an idea what the drums were going to be doing, and then I worked over here to like where this drop is. Oh, this is actually the build up right here, and I worked, I guess, more from here, so it was like. And you can see, another thing I always do is I make notes. Like, I'm not a great music guy, so I made a note here. This is A minor. And these are actually, I think, used for the live stuff in live. You can add a locator and then assign it. So when you hit 1, I think it like triggers, or you can like MIDI map them or keyboard map them. But I use them just to like keep track of what I'm doing and where I'm at. So I know, here's the drop coming in right here. And so that, I kind of like started there, and there's a sonic maximizer that's not on that lead line. But so I kind of started there. I was like, I want something that was kind of simple, but at the same time could work sonically with the key of the song if I wanted to bring it back into the more like singy parts of the track. So I got this kind of figured out. I had kind of the basic drum pattern, and this white noise is still going hard. And then I'll turn off that noise for now, so we don't got to deal with that. And then I kind of wanted to get a lead line that was just in your face. So I have an Albino, which is a Rob Papin plugin, and I got kind of like this basic Sawtooth sine blend, and I kind of just started messing with it till it sounded rad. Like, I'm not evil genius. I just like turned off the rest of the oscillators, left the one on, chug it. And like a pure saw, you get a lot of like pure saw sometimes. I wanted to have a little bit of a sine in there, so I just like, just because it sounded cool. And from there, it's all kind of about like EQing. I put like an EQ on it. So without it, it's a little more. I wanted to kind of sit on top and kind of be in people's faces in like the mids and highs, so I rolled off some of the bottom stuff. Got that jacked up. One kind of like secret tool that I use a lot is this SPL Transient Designer. But so after that in the chain, there's the EQ. Then there's a vintage warmer, exact same one as my drums, a multi-band compressor limited. I can drive it, turn it way up. Now it's kind of over compressing and kind of making that reverb go crazy. So I brought it down somewhere in here where the reverb isn't super present. And this thing is awesome. The Transient Designer allows you to kind of shape the attack and sustain so that like in my Maddie Safer remix I did, where that one is just like 808s and like percussive plunks, I use the Transient Designer and the attack to make sure that like it's really like snapping in your face, all like bing, bing, bing. So without it, it just feels a little flat. And with it on, and I can kind of just dramatically, you hear how it sounds like some more staccato? And you can kind of find a sweet spot with the Transient Designer to make it really kind of like snappy. And now that's also, you know, it's being pumped with the sidechain. This Sonic Maximizer was giving me issues pulling it up. This is a session from a while ago, so I turned it off. That's a sonic maximizer that was kind of making it a bit like wider and more interesting. And then the sidechain, you're probably familiar with. I don't usually slam them too much. Like, there was a time when like that was kind of cool. I don't do that too much. I kind of like just to duck it so it makes room for the kick. There's two filters here, a high pass and a low pass, that I use automated to kind of like bring them up, bring them down, introduce other sounds. And that was kind of the first part. Was like, how do I make this lead kind of like drop thing awesome, and these drums feel awesome, and from there you can kind of fill in the details. And so this is here. And so that was like kind of close. And then I have this bass here. It's actually deactivated right here, but I bring it back in towards the end. It becomes like another little lead line. But so yeah, I got that part, and then I move backwards as like, okay, so what I want to have in this like kind of breakdown. How am I going to keep the mood of that song? Because it's got a pretty cool vibe originally, where it feels kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of sexy.
Yeah. Motivation. Baby, I'ma be a motivation.
At Point Blank Online, you've got two methods of interaction with your tutor. Firstly, you've got the weekly online masterclass, which is in real time. And then also we've got feedback on your assignments, and that's known as DVR. So the online masterclass is a 1-hour session you get with your tutor every week. You can ask questions about the lesson content and get instant feedback, and also demonstrations on the fly from their computer desktop with our streaming technology. DVR stands for Direct Video Response, and the concept is really simple. You upload your Ableton Logic or Cubase project file to your tutor, he downloads it and then pushes record on the screen capturing software and evaluates your work, so basically giving you one-to-one feedback. You see all of the mouse movements and any parameter changes made by your tutor. It's kind of like sitting in the studio over their shoulder watching what they're doing whilst they work. We have found the DVR process has truly revolutionized the way that we teach online, and the results speak for themselves. Book your place on a course now by visiting pointblankonline.net.